You are tuning into the Unprofessional Marketing Series. This is a series of 8 conversations where I am interviewing experts in their fields to talk about marketing strategies that the gurus don't teach you. So tune in and listen to these experts as they share advice on how you can market your business unprofessionally. This week, I am joined by Jocelyn from Scale Your Resonance. I am so excited for you to listen to this episode because Jocelyn gives really digestible information on what a case study is, the different types of case studies that she teaches, and how you can use case studies to better your own marketing. She also shares some wins that her clients have seen, different ways she's helped her clients, and the types of clients that come to her to create their case studies. So if you are someone who feels like your marketing is struggling or just aren't quite clear on what makes a good case study, you're going to want to listen to this episode. All right. Thank you so much for being here. Do you want to introduce yourself to everyone?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I am Jocelyn Montemarano. I am a case study and content consultant. I originally started in journalism, so very appropriate that I kind of made my way over to the content world in business. And I support business owners of all different types, whether it's service providers, agency owners, coaches, with creating those case study stories that really connect and convert with your dream clients.
I love that you niche down to case studies because when we first met, you were running a video content agency. So I'm curious, what happened? How did you end up here?
Yeah, so many things happened. The long story short, this is going to be like so meta, but basically what I was really noticing in my own case study collection system was that my clients were filling out on an ongoing basis was that the majority of their results were coming in from case studies. And so case studies were something I've required everybody to include as part of their video strategy. It was like I had already kind of seen case studies work really well in the past before I started my own business. So I was like, you need to include them in your video strategy. You have to do at least one case study video a month, if not, more than that if you have capacity for that. But I was like, you have to do at least one a month. And then I started to notice that regardless of my clients' niches ranging anywhere from psychedelic guide who works with people on sexual trauma all the way through leadership coaching for C-suite execs, didn't matter the niche, didn't matter the audience size, case studies were the things that were driving the most results across all of their content type. And kind of around the same time, I was actually looking to grow that agency. And I was working with a consultant on my team. And as we were kind of getting into the team of things, I had video editors, but replacing me in that agency was really difficult because I included SEO, I included social, I included the video editing, I included strategy. So trying to kind of build out the team to fully replace myself started to be oh, I really don't think I want to transition into managing this huge team and getting into all of this. And I was just I just feel like there's just an easier path for me to serve clients and get them incredible results without me needing to manage 5 different people to make these results happen. And so I looked at, my case study collection system, saw that case studies were doing it. And I was like, let me see if anybody would be interested in a case study offer. And I just put out the initial offer, basically breaking out what I was doing in the agency, just pulling out the case study part and making that its own offer. And I got a client within 7 days. And then from there, it literally just started snowballing. And I was like, I think I'm on to something over here. And it just felt so aligned for me to really kind of make the pivot into that. And so about a couple months after starting the case study offer, I actually shut down the agency, stopped taking clients. And then by the end of the year, all my clients had either wrapped up or I just kind of gave notice that that side of things was closing down and made the transition fully into case studies.
That is so interesting. And it sounds like you actually had a smooth ish transition, like I feel like
Mhm.
so many times people get there by accident or like there's a whole lot of bumps along the way. But before we get into all that is good with case studies, I want you to clarify for everyone listening, what's a case study? What's a testimonial? What's the difference? Why are we not just doing screenshots from our phones anymore?
Yeah. Yeah. So if you are somebody who is currently like using screenshots or just testimonials where your clients are like, oh my gosh, I loved working with them. Like this whole experience was so great. Those things are really nice to have, but that type of social proof doesn't actually convert. I mean, I kind of like to use this analogy of Rent the Runway to illustrate this. It really clicks for people. But if you go on to Rent the Runway and you're going to rent like a black tie gown for a wedding, Rent the Runway will ship that dress to you to arrive a day or two before the event. So basically, you don't really have time if that dress doesn't fit you to like go find something else, right? So when you're looking at Rent the Runway, they have all these star ratings and you can see like, oh, 5 stars, 4.5 stars, like things like that. And yeah, that like can give you some initial proof of like, okay, people like this dress. It's probably nice quality. It's probably, flattering and, things like that, right? But it still leaves the question like, will this fit and flatter my specific body type and my height and the event I'm going to and all of that? So, Rent the Runway has very detailed, like case study style reviews where you can see, okay, here's the person who reviewed it. Here's the photo of them wearing the dress. Here's their height, their weight, their body shape, their cup size, the dress size they typically wear, the dress size they wore in this, whether, it was true to size or ran small and large, plus then the open-ended review of like where they wore it to and like what they felt was great about it, or if they were like, oh, it was a little too long or it's a little tighter in the hips or whatever those details are. And all of that detail is what actually gets you confident to be like, okay, I can actually see somebody else who's 5'3" with my same body shape, my same cup size, wearing this dress. And, they said it didn't drag behind them on the floor, which is always, somebody who's 5'3", like my biggest thing. I'm like, oh my God, like, is this going to have a train on it? So like seeing those details actually makes me be like, oh, okay, I see they look like me. They have a similar body shape and type and weight and height and all of that. If it fit and flattered them, it's likely going to fit and flatter me, or vice versa. If they're like, yeah, short girls, this is not for you, like look somewhere else, then I know, okay, great. Like this isn't for me. I only see tall girls saying that they love this and that it fit them properly. And like, that's okay too. And that's like the difference between testimonials and screenshots and case studies. Same thing in your offer. Those screenshots and testimonials can like hook people in and be like, okay, there's something here. People are sharing really kind words. But it's the case study stories that actually show, I see people like me inside of that service or inside of that coaching program getting results. They had the same resources. They started from the same point. They were in the same situation. They were in the same niche, like whatever those details are, they can actually see that. And that's what gives confidence to people to be like, I see people succeeding in this offer who are like me. And that makes it so much more likely that I am going to succeed in there as well. And that's a difference between just like social proof that doesn't necessarily convert, but can like hook you in and pull you in, versus case studies that really do that work of like showing who this offer is for, addressing those like hidden fears and concerns, and really telling the story about who succeeds in this offer and why.
And I feel like, I mean, you've been in business the same as me. Like we were here 2020, 2021. And I feel like so many people got burned from the people sharing the screenshots saying like, you can have these results too. And that's where like the case studies now are so important, and they add this layer of transparency that the screenshots don't, because there's not enough information in that my client just had a $20,000 month with me,
Mhm.
because it's like, what were they at when they came to you? What kind of business do they have? Like, what's their lead generation system, right? Like, it's like, can I actually do that in the next 3 months? Or are we starting from very different starting points and it's not at all possible for me even though the coach is saying anyone can do it, right?
Yeah. And sometimes it is like okay to be like, okay, at least like for me, from my perspective, I'm always like, somebody may see like, oh, I see that this person, maybe like for example, if you are an ad strategist, right? Like helping somebody with their Facebook ads and meta ads, right? Like using that example, like somebody coming in, maybe they had a evergreen webinar funnel that converted prior to joining. And maybe you don't have that and you're like, okay, like I don't have that. Can I still be successful? Maybe you're like, well, I don't have the webinar funnel, but I have like a lead magnet funnel and like I am pretty good at converting my email list. So even if somebody's like not just the same, it's at least having that transparency that you mentioned of like, I know what they had to get that result. And if I still want to join and make that decision and know it might be a little bit different because they had this, like, that's okay. It's like also in part of like just providing that transparency so people can make the decision of, you know what, like, I feel like my lead magnet is really good. It's not a webinar funnel, but like it converts. And, you know, I'm confident once people are on my list, I can convert them and I'm going to take that leap of faith, even though I don't see an exact case study, but at least they have the transparency and they're making that like autonomous decision rather than to your point of like missing that detail and being like, oh, if I had known all of your successful clients had webinar funnels, I would have waited until I had a webinar funnel to join, right? That type of thing.
Yeah. Okay, so after all of that, what's your method? What's your, like you were saying, you have a system for collecting them. What's your steps?
Yeah. So there's kind of like two different pieces to having like a really effective case study strategy. There's how you're collecting the case studies and then the actual case study stories that you are telling. And obviously you can't tell the most effective case study stories if you aren't collecting the right data every step of the way. So what I work with my clients on is creating a collection system that includes an onboarding form, progress form, and case study form. And that tracks every single detail that we need from the moment they joined through the end. But what's kind of like really important about this system is you have to reverse engineer it and really think about, based on the objections my potential client has about joining my offer, what do I need to be asking along the way to understand, you know, on their onboarding form, where are they starting from? What's their situation? Who are they as a person? And then what type of progress are they making? How fast are they making that progress? What are they using inside of the offer that's really helping them make that progress? How is that different than what they've tried in the past that didn't work for them? And then ultimately, like, what is that end result? How is their life changed now? Those types of things. So a lot of times what I witness is either people have no collection system and, you know, it's just a Slack channel or a Circle channel or, you know, even just like on one-on-one coaching calls or even group calls, you're just like asking for wins, but you don't have like a formal collection system. Or they have some type of collection system in place. Maybe we've got these, you know, 3 different forms in place, but you're not really thinking about it from the perspective of like, what stories do I need to tell to overcome those objections? Just like Rent the Runway gives you the details on like body shape and bust size and things like that. What does your offer need and what do you need to communicate there? So you have to really be specific about the questions along the way and not just ask, you know, how many sales did you make this month and be done with it. You really have to get into more of the story and like what is unfolding every step of the way. And then that's what's going to give you the really great data to tell the different types of case studies that you need to in order to address those types of objections that we were talking about.
And what are the different types of case studies that you teach?
Yeah. So I have 4 different ones that I teach. So the first is like the most common, what we think of, which is offer goal. So basically that big, sexy result of your offer that you are helping people achieve. That's typically when most people kind of create a case study. They're thinking about it from the perspective of like, okay, when they get to the end and they reach a 10K month or, you know, whatever that sexy goal is for your offer, then they write that case study. These are really important, obviously, to like back up your offer and show that people are actually achieving what you are saying it's going to support them in achieving. But if you're only using offer goal case studies and like waiting for the end, you're like constantly waiting for people to, get to that end result. So the other type of case study I like is progress case study. And this is really to help build demand and urgency for your offer, because you can talk about the progress that they make in the first hour, the first 7 days, the first 30 days, the first 60 days, first 90 days, etc., and what that timeline looks like throughout their time in your offer. And again, it can be a service offer or, a coaching based offer. And depending on kind of what that looks like for you, the collection system kind of accommodates that. But ultimately, what you're really looking for is like, what type of progress are they making towards that end goal, and in what time frame, so I can overcome objections around like time, because that's always going to be one.
Mm-hmm.
And then also really showing the progress that they're making along the way, because that gets people excited. It's like, oh, I didn't realize I was going to get this, and this along the way. The third type is solutions case studies. And this is what people, to me, shockingly miss a lot. But these types of case studies are really about your specific methodologies. So your approach, your frameworks, your processes, your systems, your deliverables, whatever it might be that's included in your offer, really how those are helping people achieve results. Because we're always going to get objections around like, this isn't different than what I know, or I've already tried that, and things like that. So you have to be showing how your offer is different than everything they know, everything they've tried, and everything else they're evaluating to solve whatever problem it is that they're looking to solve in your offer, and really show how you've made it so easy, so effective, and so foolproof for them to get this result. And really creating that, like I call it like the gap of like, oh, I'm at point A, I want to get to point C, and this is the solution to get me there. And I see I'm missing that solution. So it really builds desire. And it's really interesting that people miss this, because I'm like, you are not just selling what you do, you're selling how you do it, right? Like, I don't want people just buying into like, oh, you need case studies, because then they'll be like, oh, great, like I'll go create case studies. I want you buying into the way I specifically teach you, and why that's more effective, and like how that's going to support you better than like, a case study template you could buy for $100 or whatever it might be, right? So we don't just want to sell people on what we do. We really want to sell on how, and solution case studies do such a great job at that. And then the last type is bonus results. So these are kind of like all of the results that they get because of the work that they are doing inside of your offer. Again, whether that's done for you or it is a coaching offer, they are still doing something that is helping them. And so, for example, this for me might be like, yeah, they're publishing more case studies and getting clients that way, but maybe they notice their referrals increase because their clients actually now know what type of progress they're making and what type of results they're getting, which they didn't really realize before you had a tracking system in place. And now that clients can see like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize like how much progress I've actually made. They get really excited. They share it more. Now, I'm not teaching like referrals, but that's a really nice byproduct that a lot of clients do experience. So that would be like an example of a bonus result where it's still related, obviously, to what I do, but it's kind of that like ripple effect, if you will, of that. So when you include those 4 different types of case studies, you really get this like well-rounded approach to talking about the results that your offer supports your clients to create, and helps you address all of those different types of objections, and allows people to see what they can expect inside of your program, and who's achieving these types of results, and how fast they're doing it, and all of that.
I find it so interesting that you said the solution case studies are the ones people miss the most, because when people ask me what content is worth repurposing, how do I choose what content to repurpose, the first thing I always say is, do you have content that talks about your process or about your method or about your framework? Because that's the content that showcases why you. And so it's like different type of content, but it's still like same goal, I guess, of like positioning you as the expert, right? And like your method, your ways of doing it. Why do you think that's the one that people are missing? Do you think they're not asking the right questions when collecting case studies to get the results that talk about their frameworks?
Yeah, it's definitely that. That's a huge piece of it, in terms of like, you have to specifically be asking like in your progress form. Again, this goes back to not just asking like, what is the actual result you got? Like how many
Mm-hmm.
sales, or like how many pieces of content were you able to publish, or something like that. You really have to ask those story questions, and people aren't asking like what specifically helped them achieve that, and like how they achieved that, micro result. The other thing I noticed is a lot of people think they don't have frameworks, concepts, tools, etc. And I like start talking with them and I start pulling it out, and they'll say something like, oh yeah, like I use this and this and this. And I'm like, that's a framework, that's a framework, that's a framework. But they don't necessarily always realize that. So that was really interesting to me, because I like just naturally think in frameworks, which is just really weird. But like, I just like naturally think like that. So that was so interesting to me that they didn't like just initially grasp that they have, frameworks and concepts and things like that they're using in their offer. And then I think the other thing too is like, there has historically been, and a lot of people still teach this in content, to like leave it a mystery and leave it open ended, of like, oh, you're having this problem, I have a solution inside, come get it. Whereas like now there's so much more of a trend of like, oh no, I actually want to see what you have inside and understand how it works. We're not teaching them that framework the way you would teach it inside of a program, or you're not giving them something you have in your service, like literally giving them the how to, but you're telling them what it is and why it's beneficial to them. Whereas in the past, people held that like really close to their chest and would like not really, they would be like, oh yeah, here's like the fancy scale method, and the S, the C, the A, the L, the E all stands for something, but like they might tell you maybe what the word meant, but they're not like really diving in. They're like systems, automation. So like, but you're like, okay, like what? So I feel like that's a little bit like of an old school way. So I've also noticed that pattern of like, oh, like I thought I wasn't supposed to teach in my content. And I'm like, you're not teaching your framework or like telling them how to do it, but you're telling them what it is and why it's important and why you developed it to solve a specific problem, so that they realize like, oh, I don't have this thing, and that's the missing piece, rather than it being this like ambiguous question mark.
The advice that, I mean, it still goes around of
Yeah.
like sell the transformation, not the features.
Mm.
I wonder if that also like gets in the way of people talking about their frameworks, or even like spending the time to create and like finesse their frameworks.
Yeah.
Because they're like trying to only talk about the transformation and never tell you this is what you get inside.
Exactly. Yeah. I see that a lot too with B2C people. They really like emphasize certain lifestyles and things like that, where, they're like selling, a very specific lifestyle. I'm like, okay, cool. But is it like, how do I get there? And like, what is your method? And like, what is the work that we are actually doing to create this lifestyle? Like that, I don't know. And then that's how they fall into that sea of sameness. But I think you hit on it really well, like that idea that like they're trying to just speak to the transformation, but it's like you want to speak to the transformation by telling them this is the framework that's going to get you this transformation, and here's what it does. Not here's how to do it, but here's what it does. Here's the transformation it gives you. And then now you need to get inside to get the how it actually works and how to use it, type of thing.
When people are coming to you, do you get the ones that like already have clients coming in and they're looking to build out systems, or do you get people who are brand new and they want to make sure they have the systems before they even get the clients?
Yeah, most of my clients are already like established in a way where they've gotten like typically at least like 10 clients, really great results. And now they're starting to see that momentum of, oh, wow, like I'm seeing like my clients are getting results. I kind of have finessed my offer. Obviously, we're always iterating on it, but like I know the core of my offer and the price point and like all of that. I know how to sell it. Of course, we can always get better, but like they have those foundations in place. And then they're really like, okay, now I need to just like let that momentum carry. I can finally have like case studies the way like my coaches do, that have 6-figure programs or even 7-figure programs where they have pages and pages and pages of case studies. And then I also work with a lot of people who are a little bit more established, and they're seeing like, oh, I, number one, see how the case studies I've already done have really supported me. And I never even did them very strategically. Like I just, did them as part of a program that was like add in case studies. And like that was the extent of like the skill they developed. So those more established people are also recognizing like, oh yeah, like this is something like I constantly need to be like refining my skill around because it plays such an important role. And as they scale and go out to colder and colder audiences, building that trust faster and faster is really important. And the case studies really help with that.
And what's a common change that you see people have? Like, what's a common result people have once they start using case studies?
Yeah. So a lot of times it's like an increase in conversion rate. So one of my clients had an evergreen funnel and it was converting at 3%, which is pretty good for like a course funnel. We pulled out her social proof emails, replaced them with 3 dedicated case study emails, and we inserted a case study section into that webinar without changing anything else. That conversion rate went from 3% to 10%. That took her from having like low 4-figure months to having consistent 5-figure months and rolling double-digit clients every single month. And then that gave her space to like turn on ads and things like that, which is, huge when you have an evergreen funnel. You're like, I want it to convert, right? And then same thing in launches. Like I've had clients who, when you go into a launch, you need to hit certain conversion rates from your email list, in order to hit your client goal, but you also need audience growth, right? The number of people that are on your list to hit that. And I've had clients not hit the audience growth goal that they needed to hit, but because they increased their conversion rate by adding in more effective case studies, they were able to hit their launch goals, even though they technically didn't hit their leads goal, because they were able to increase that conversion rate and they didn't need to have like double the audience to hit double their launch type of thing.
So something that I find interesting about like your methods and the way you teach case studies is a lot of people just say like do the video interviews or like video recordings. I know there's the app that you ask the questions, people just answer it. But like you're talking about emails and sales pages and stuff. So do you have a type of content that you encourage people collecting or using for case studies? Because I know like with your process collection, it sounds like they're forms more than anything over calls, right? So how do you recommend people share case studies?
Yeah. So I teach the full spectrum, but I say start with email because it's the lowest lift and it's the closest point to the sale. So if you do nothing else, if you start sending case study emails, you should see some conversions because ideally you're already sending some sales emails. So even just by adding in case studies or by making your case studies more effective, you're going to see an increase in conversions from that. And again, it's just so low lift. Like you don't have to schedule anything with a client. Like you don't have to whatever. You can just look at your data, pull something out on a random Tuesday and be like, great, I have a new piece of content for email. And then I am like in the same boat as you. So I'm like, you can repurpose that email into a carousel or like a story sequence or something like that. So you can get your social post out of it. Then I go into, okay, then get your sales page updated because I'm like, if you're writing the email, you can now just like take the email, trim down, the kind of like larger story things to get to that like 3 paragraphs for that sales page. So that's like an easy next step. And then layer in case study interviews and blogs and things like that. Because I'm like, I want to make sure that you are consistently publishing case studies as like a regular piece of content. And I love interviews. That's literally like where I started with everything. They convert so well, but there is an element of like some extra work that goes into it, of course. So if you don't already have like a podcast editor or a YouTube editor or something like that, there's going to be some extra steps for you. But I also noticed like in my own buying behavior and all of us, like I need to see like the shorter things first before I decide to go commit 20, 30, 40 minutes to a long form piece of content, right? So by hooking people in with the short form content and validating through that email, through those social posts, the sales page features, like, oh, okay, I see clients like me inside of this offer. Let me dig in deeper. Then they can go to that long format. But I probably won't listen to a long format case study interview until I'm already like seen people, because I'm like, I want to make sure that like the time I'm even spending evaluating like this offer or this coach or whatever it might be, that like I belong in it. So I want to see that first, and then I want to go deep. Okay, now like show me what this experience is going to look like and feel like, and let me hear it from their words and that type of thing. So I typically recommend starting with that like written email, that sales page, and then layering in that long form content, because I love long form.
No, that's so interesting, because I will always skip a case study podcast unless I'm already on the fence about wanting to buy,
Mhm.
and then I'm looking for it. But it's like,
Yeah. And that's too,
it's not
yeah.
a regular episode I'd listen to on a podcast
Yeah.
that I already
And
listen to.
that's something that like I've been working really hard to solve, because I think so many people structure their case study podcast interviews or case study like YouTube emails as like purely something for people who are in the purchasing decision.
Mhm.
And I actually like viewing it as something that's applicable to both current clients and potential clients. But I also view like your whole video podcast, your whole podcast, your whole YouTube channel should also be like that. So it's a little different mentality, but like I encourage my clients to find a way to make it relevant to their current clients too, and not just be asking questions like, did you like working with me as a coach? And like things like that, but like actually asking questions that would provide value, and like where somebody could like learn from that person, because then it's not so just like, okay, tell me how much you love this program. Tell me how great of a coach I am. Like, tell me all these things. And it's a more interesting conversation where, yes, they're hearing some of that, but they're also getting other value outside of that. So I almost think about like, how can you make your like long form interviews, especially if you have a podcast, almost feel like a micro mind or something, where your client who's giving the case study interview is actually like sharing their secrets to success that are relevant to both potential clients and also existing clients, so that it's more interesting, like you said, because it can fall really flat if not done right.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought, and I'm gonna have to sit with it, because like immediately I'm like, nothing comes to mind. But I know that like storytelling is very big in 2025. And so with writing, especially case studies, I feel like storytelling is a large element of it. Obviously, you have a background in journalism. Do you help people with storytelling? Like, do you give them prompts? Do you walk them through like what makes a good story? Like, what's your approach to that?
Yeah. So for each of those four different types of case studies, I walk through like literally each section of it and why, like what's happening in that section,
Mhm.
why we're doing it, and specifically what to include. So like we always open with empathizing with the potential client and where they currently are. That's like, if here's a hot tip. Okay. If you are currently opening your case studies with meet Jane, she is, this person. It's like, I don't care about Jane. I'm sorry. I don't, we have to be speaking to that, reader or that listener or something like that. So really pulling in, here's what you're currently experiencing. And I totally understand and empathize with that. And that's exactly what this client was experiencing. So you're kind of leading with that story and painting the picture, setting the scene for like what they're currently experiencing, then introducing the character just like we would in, a book. They start by describing some scene, and then, the character gets brought in. And then, yeah, going through that whole, like, what was like the big conflict? What was the pivotal moment? What was the climax? And then what's that like final resolution? We follow that framework that they use in blockbuster movies and books and everything that we love, just down to our case studies, so that there's a really nice pattern to follow, but you have a lot of flexibility, and it doesn't feel so intimidating to like craft this like artistic story that just sounds so like juicy, right? Like I wish I was one of those writers. I'm trying to like develop that skill, but like I'm not this like beautiful artistic writer. Like I'm just like give me the give me the structure. So that's kind of my approach to it.
Yeah, I understand that. I am like very dry and blunt as a human. So sometimes in my writing, I'm like, this is what it is. What else do I have to say? Like, why do I need to make
Yeah.
it pretty?
Yeah. It's tough because, I've also noticed this in like as a buyer myself, but like emotions do play a role in the buyer's journey. And it's like we have to get our clients excited about what's possible for them and like really build that like excitement and hype up around our offer, our solutions, like the features that we've included, like everything. And bringing story in can do that a lot more because it makes it feel so much more real. It's like I can ask my partner, like, oh, do you want to like cook dinner in the kitchen together tonight? And it's like, sure, but if I'm like, hey, babe, like, do you want to put on like our favorite playlist later? And like, maybe we can pick up some filet mignon and some like truffle oil and make some like roasted truffle mashed potatoes with, filet mignon. And then I was thinking we could eat out back on the patio because the weather's been warmer. Like, it's like, oh yeah, that sounds really nice, right? Like that's a totally different vibe, right? And it's like at the end of the day, it's making dinner at home, but like one way feels so much like more exciting and sexier and like everything that I want. And I can visualize that and like taste that literally. Versus the other is just kind of like, okay, like we should have a nice dinner at home, but like I'm not as excited about it. And that's the same for how we have to sell our offers too.
Yeah, it's like I'm gonna do this every day no matter what, but how can I make it better? Like how can I
Special. Yeah. Yeah.
romanticize this moment?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right, so how can people get started now to collect better case studies and to share better case studies?
Yeah. So I think like the easiest way to get started is really thinking about like, okay, you have current clients that have likely experienced results. You probably don't even know all the results, especially if you haven't been collecting like their progress along the way. So even just sending what I call like a retroactive case study form, which is like, in the ideal situation, we're capturing details on their onboarding form, their progress form, and their case study form, which is essentially like the before information, the during information, and the after information. And the client's story literally writes itself. But when we don't have that, we can use a retroactive case study form, which is like, okay, the client's at the end of the offer, or if it's like a retainer or something like that, they've been in here long enough that they should have, experienced some results, and retroactively go back and ask questions about where they were before joining, what they experienced during the process and throughout the experience so far, and then where they are now. That's just like the easiest way to get something that's probably 10 times better than just testimonials and screenshots if that's all you have right now. And that'll get you pretty far. And then you can literally just take that data and be like, before joining, they were here, during, and then after. And then it's not the best, but it's such a great way to get started. If again, right now, the only way you're getting info from clients is like testimonials and screenshots.
Mm-hmm.
And it also, I want to say this too, because I think a lot of people get really nervous about asking for results because they're like, I don't know what results they've gotten. Like, what if they haven't gotten, XYZ results? Like, what if they're not happy? Like all of these things. You don't have to call it a case study form. You can just ask, provide feedback on your experience. Just kind of collect the info, and you can throw in some feedback questions in there. Like if you're unsure if clients have gotten results or what they're getting, like ask like, how can I make this experience better? Is there anything you wish I included? Like, don't be afraid of people giving you feedback that's going to help improve your offer. I think that's like something I had to get over at one point. And now it's just like, oh yeah, I love it. My clients give me the best ideas because I'm asking for it, and they have that opportunity to share that feedback. And rather than going and rant about me online somewhere being like, she was awful, like they're like, oh my God, like I gave a piece of feedback, Jocelyn took it to heart and like did something about it. And like, I'm getting incredible results, right? Like that's what we want. So don't be afraid of, being like, I don't know if they got results or anything like that. You can't know until you start asking, and you can't start improving those results until you start collecting that information and doing something with it.
Well, I am so guilty of sending feedback forms and then asking my VA to look at them before I look at them to tell me, like, is this going to upset me?
Yeah, carve out some time. Don't do it like right before a podcast interview or something. But it is really helpful. And I honestly, on my form, I have a feedback form that's just like always available in my program. So I don't have to like retroactively ask for it. So clients can submit it at any time. But I just say kind feedback is always welcome. I am always open for ways to improve the experience for all clients. And that creates a culture where people are kind in their delivery and not being like, I mean, I have incredible clients, period.
Yeah, no,
but
I'm like,
it also
my
just
clients...
adds a barrier of setting that expectation of like, don't come into this form like pissed
rip me to
off.
shreds.
Come in with a great idea and being like, hey, I got stuck here for a while and we eventually, got through it. But I feel like it would have been more helpful if this feature was included or, something like that. And then yeah, that can kind of alleviate some anxiety people might have around that and toughen our skin a little bit. But then it becomes like, oh my God, my clients are giving me such great ideas, like, and I'm not paying them, and it changes that culture around it. Yeah.
Perfect. No, that's great. And is there anything else you want to add that you think people need to know about case studies?
I mean, I could yap all day. But I mean, we touched on so much great stuff. I think the one sentence that just kind of wraps up, if you remember nothing else from this interview, I would love for you just to remember like case studies aren't just about the results. Your social proof isn't just about the results. It's specifically about addressing the objections your potential clients have to why they can't get the results. So if you look at it through that lens of like, is this client story addressing a specific objection, you're going to have so much better case studies already just by thinking about it and writing about it through that lens rather than like, here's the sexy, big number or whatever it might be. And that will really like help you improve right out the gate without doing anything else.
I love that. That's a great answer. The question that I ask everyone who comes on this show is, what makes you an unprofessional entrepreneur?
Well, if I could stand up right now. Is this a video version? Are people going to see the video?
Yeah, like it's video. What are you?
So you can't really see, but I'm in my flowy floral yoga pants on the bottom, but I've got my blouse up top. So that's definitely one thing. If I'm on camera, the bottom half is the party at home for sure, and the top half is business. So yeah, that's definitely one thing. And then the other thing I would say is like I am just all about days off. So since the first year of my business, like I've always taken at least 10 weeks of vacation time throughout the year. Which like obviously if I was in corporate, like that would be pretty unprofessional because that's like an extensive amount of time off throughout the year. And that's like my minimum time off. So yeah, that's pretty unprofessional at times.
Yeah, I was like, are you going to talk about your obsession with going snowboarding?
Yes. So we were living in Airbnbs, like nomading around for a while. And that whole year, that was probably my highest year. I think I had like close to 70 days off and like 28 of them, something like that were spent on the mountain snowboarding. So, yeah.
Pure dedication.
Yes. Yeah. It was good snow season.
I mean, at least you did it on a year there was good snow.
Yes.
So what's next for you? Where can the people find you? What are you up to?
Yes, come find me on Threads. That's where I yap the most. So if you want the most kind of content, Threads, and then also my email list, which you can opt in on by going to scaleyourresonance.com/class, and you'll get my free masterclass and be added into my email. And in the free masterclass, I go through more specific examples of those 4 different types of case study stories, when you would be using them, kind of what they look like. And I also break down like, here's an example of like a not so great case study versus here's an example of a really well done case study. So you can really like visualize that and see the difference between like a so-so case study versus one that has converted multiple clients for me.
I love that. That's perfect. Everyone should start using case studies. I'm like, that's how I'm gonna wrap this up. The whole point of this episode is for you to start using case studies.
Yes.
If you're not, go follow Jocelyn and she will whip you into shape. And thank you so much for coming and teaching everyone all your genius. And yeah.
Yay. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.